Chapter 11. Mr. Kranky's Great Idea. The next day, George's father came down to breakfast in a state of greater excitement than ever. "I've been awake all night thinking about it," he cried. "About what, Dad?" George asked. "About your marvellous medicine, of course. We can't stop now, my boy. We must start making more of it at once. More and more and more and more." The giant saucepan had been completely emptied the day before because there'd been so many sheep and pigs and cows and bulls to be dosed. "But why do we need more, Dad?" George asked. "We've already done all of our own animals, and Grandma feels as frisky as a ferret, even though she does have to sleep in the barn." "My dear boy," cried Mr. Kranky, "we need barrels and barrels and barrels of it, tons and tons, and then we're going to sell it to every farmer in the world so that all of them can have giant animals. We'll build a marvellous medicine factory, and we're going to sell the stuff in bottles at £5 a time. We're going to be rich, and you're going to be famous." "But wait a minute, Dad," George said. "There's no waiting," cried Mr. Kranky, working himself up so much that he put butter in his coffee and milk on his toast. "Don't you understand what this tremendous invention of yours is going to do to the world? Nobody will ever go hungry again." "Why won't they?" said George. "Because one giant cow would give 50 buckets of milk a day. One giant chicken will make 100 fried chicken dinners. And one giant pig would give you 1,000 pork chops. It's tremendous, dear boy. It's fantastic. We're going to change the world." "But wait a minute, Dad," said George again. "Don't keep saying wait a minute," said George's father. "There's not 1 minute to wait. We must get cracking at once." "Do calm down, dear," Mrs. Kranky said from the corner of the table, "and stop putting marmalade in your cornflakes." "The heck with my cornflakes," cried Mr. Kranky, leaping up from his chair. "Come on, George, let's get going. And the first thing we'll do is we'll make one more sauceful as a tester." But Dad, the trouble is—" "There won't be any trouble, my boy," cried Mr. Kranky. "How could there possibly be any trouble? All you've got to do is put the same stuff in the saucepan that you did yesterday. And while you're doing it, I shall write everything down, each and every item, and that's how we'll get the magic recipe." "But Dad," George said, "please listen to me." "Oh, why don't you listen to him?" Mrs. Kranky said. "The boy's trying to tell you something." Mr. Kranky was too excited to listen to anybody except for himself. "And then," he cried, "when the new mixture is ready, we'll just test it out on an old hen, just to make absolutely sure we've got it right. And after that, we'll shout hooray and build a giant factory." "Dad!" "Oh, come on then. What is it that you wanted to say?" "It's just that I can't possibly remember all the hundreds of things that I put into the saucepan to make the medicine," George said. "Of course you can, my dear boy," cried Mr. Kranky. "I'll help you. I'll jog your memory. You'll get it in the end. You see if we don't. Now then, what was the very first thing that you put in?" "I went up to the bathroom first, and then I used a lot of things from the bathroom, and then a lot of things from Mummy's dressing table." "Come on then," said Mr. Kranky. "Off we go up to the bathroom." When they got there, of course, they found all sorts of empty bottles and empty containers. "That's great," said Mr. Kranky. "That tells us exactly what you used. If anything is empty, it means you used it. So, Mr. Kranky started to make a list of everything that was empty in the bathroom. Then they went to Mrs. Kranky's dressing table. A box of powder, said Mr. Kranky, writing it down. Helga's hair set. Mr. Kranky wrote it down. Flower of turnip perfume. Terrific. This is going to be easy. Where did you go next, George? To the laundry room, George said. But are you sure we haven't missed anything from up here, Dad? That's up to you, my boy, Mr. Kranky said. Have I? I don't think so, George said. So down they went to the laundry room. And once again, Mr. Kranky wrote down all the names of the things, of all the empty bottles and all the empty cans. My goodness me, he said. What an awful lot of stuff you used. No wonder it did magic things. Is that the lot? No, Dad, it's not, George said. And he led his father out to the shed where all the animal medicines were kept and showed him the 5 big empty bottles on the shelf. Mr. Kranky wrote down all their names. Anything else? Mr. Kranky asked. Little George scratched his head and thought and thought and thought, but he couldn't remember having put anything else in. Mr. Krilly Kranky leapt into his car and drove to the shops to buy new bottles and tubes and cans of everything on the list. He then went to the vet's and got a fresh supply of all the animal medicines that George had used. Now, show me how you did it, said his dad. Come along, show me exactly how you mixed them all together.